That night when the dam burst, it wasn't just concrete that gave way, it was the whole illusion of control Karen Whitmore had built around herself. By midnight, the streets of Maple Hollow were rivers, cars were spinning like toys, and the HOA president, who had once strutted around in designer blazers, was on her knees in the mud, sobbing as her perfect corner lot palace drowned before her eyes. And me, I just stood there soaked to the bone, watching the very thing I warned them about unfold in real time. I should back up. My name's John Jennings. I spent 32 years as an Army engineer building, breaking, and rebuilding things in places most people wouldn't survive a week. When I retired, I didn't want golf carts, wine nights, or a subdivision with matching mailboxes. I just wanted a patch of land that felt like mine. That's why I bought the house at the edge of Maple Hollow, where a little creek ran clear and steady out back. It reminded me of camping with my son when he was small, reminded me that water has a voice if you care enough to listen. At first, my property wasn't even under HOA jurisdiction, but they expanded, swallowed my lot, and I figured fine. Keep my yard clean, pay the dues, stay out of trouble. I'd pick my battles. Then Karen Whitmore moved in. She was the kind of person who drove a black Range Rover and acted like she was auditioning for mayor of a town nobody asked for. 3 months after arriving, she was HOA president. 6 months, she was rewriting bylaws. And by month 8, she was standing in my backyard with a clipboard staring at my creek like it was a blank canvas waiting for her signature. She said she had a vision. A yoga pond. Benches. Ducks. Serenity. I told her flat, "It's a creek, not a koi pond." She laughed like I was joking. I wasn't. Weeks later, she brought contractors, started walking the banks with tape measures and fake enthusiasm. Then came the HOA meeting slideshows of sunlit water features, smiling moms on mats. Karen stood there and called my creek underutilized. That was when I stood up and told the room what happens when you choke a waterway with bad engineering, flooding, sediment buildup, property damage. I'd seen it all overseas. I laid out numbers, storm runoff volumes, flood zones. But when it came to the vote, every hand went up except mine. People just wanted pretty sidewalks and fewer leaves in the gutters. They didn't want to fight. The backhoes arrived 2 weeks later. I woke to diesel engines and men in fluorescent vests marking the banks with spray paint. Karen showed up in a hard hat she clearly bought for show, telling me everything was perfectly legal. When I asked for permits, she smiled that sugary smile and said they'd filed a notice. Filing a notice isn't approval, it's not a permit, it's nothing. But she waved me off like a fly and strutted back to her Range Rover. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just about landscaping. This was about power, and she was convinced she was untouchable. I started documenting photos, measurements, videos of every PVC pipe and concrete form. I knew the law likes facts, and slowly neighbors noticed. Old Mr. Caldwell walked by and shook his head. Laura, a single mom, knocked on my door with her little girl and asked, "Is it true they're draining the creek?" I told her, "No, they're damming it and it wasn't safe." Others began to whisper, but fear of retaliation was real. And Karen proved them right. Violation letters landed in my mailbox about my fence, my firewood stack, even my dog's water bowl. Petty, deliberate. Then came the big one, a certified letter from HOA legal threatening liens and penalties if I kept interfering. I'll admit it. That night, sitting on my porch with Murphy, my old shepherd mix, I felt beaten. I thought maybe I was the problem. Maybe I was just some bitter retiree clinging to a patch of water while the world moved on. I asked myself if it was worth it, if I should just shut up, pay my dues, and let her have her pond. But deep down I knew better. I'd seen arrogance like hers before in uniforms and boardrooms, and I'd buried men because of it. That creek was more than scenery. It was stability, memory, and nature doing what it was meant to do. I wasn't going to let her strangle it for a plaque with her name on it. So I called Tony. He's an old Army buddy now, a state environmental investigator. He came back with gold. Karen had submitted fake drainage plans through a shell company that hadn't existed for years. No engineering stamp, no hydrology report, nothing. Fraud, plain and simple. That gave me ammo. I built a website, posted everything. Photos, documents, rainfall charts. I made flyers with neighbors. We called it the Creek Report. No rants, no conspiracy, just facts. People started talking in grocery aisles at gas stations. Even Karen's loyalists looked nervous. Karen responded the only way she knew how: more power plays. She launched a fake enforcement unit, a white SUV patrolling streets with HOA decals slapped on the doors. She fined kids for murals, fined veterans for flying flags, fined anyone who looked at her the wrong way. And me. She tried to suspend me from all HOA activities, branded me a harasser. But now I had backup. Dana, a firecracker of a real estate attorney, sent a demand letter blasting the HOA for unlawful retaliation. And Tony fed me more proof, more dirt, until the story couldn't be buried anymore. Meanwhile, the weather turned. Spring rains hammered the ground, and every morning I watched that dam swell like a clenched fist. I saw concrete sweat soil, crack seams bulge. I reported it, begged officials to step in, but Karen called it sabotage. She even accused me online of vandalizing the site myself. Imagine that, me, a retired engineer, sneaking around at night to sabotage concrete. It would have been funny if it wasn't so insane. Then came the night. Storm warnings blared. Sheets of rain battered rooftops, gutters roared like drums. I walked the creek with Murphy and a handful of neighbors, Laura Caldwell flashlights bouncing on the trembling spillway. We saw it bleeding water through cracks, heard the hollow groan beneath the surface. Caldwell whispered, "That's not good." I called 911, "Not if it's when." By midnight, the whole neighborhood knew. I felt the first snap from my porch, like the earth itself had cracked. Then came the roar. The dam buckled fissures turned to fractures, and the creek, my creek, exploded through the concrete like it was paper. Water tore down Sycamore Lane, carrying trampolines, patio chairs, fences. I threw Murphy in the truck and drove straight into the chaos. At the clubhouse, people were screaming, trapped on the steps. Karen was in the middle, drenched, pale, clutching her phone like she could tweet her way out. I jumped from my truck, shouting for everyone to move to higher ground. Some listened, some froze. I grabbed Karen by the arm. She felt like dead weight and snarled, "Move!" She looked at me like a ghost and whispered, "You were right." I yanked her uphill as the yoga deck she'd bragged about ripped free and smashed into the playground. Her house went next. The big windows shattered, her fancy sofa floated out like an offering. She howled, a raw, broken sound. By dawn, the rain eased. The dam was gone, reduced to chunks of concrete scattered across lawns like tombstones. The clubhouse was chest-deep in mud. Half the neighborhood's basements were wrecked. Karen sat in the grass, her blazer gray with filth mascara washed away, staring at the ruins of her kingdom. No one comforted her. People walked past as if touching her might bring the water back. That morning, state officials rolled in, clipboards and cameras flashing. Tony showed up too, dropped a flash drive on my kitchen table with everything fake: permits, HOA emails, evidence stacked a mile high. "She already sank herself," he said. And he was right. The board crumbled, resignations flew, and by sundown, Karen Whitmore was no longer HOA president. Just another name whispered with resentment, her house condemned, her power gone. The creek flowed free again, steady and relentless, as it always meant to. And I learned something standing there in the mud, watching nature reclaim its voice. Arrogance can build a dam, but truth will always break it.